Brothers and sisters, let's get something straight today. Not because it's fashionable, not because it's polite, but because it's necessary. We're not here to sugarcoat lies with sweet language. We're here to peel back the mask of this so-called land of the free and reveal the ugly face that's always been hiding underneath. America has sold you a dream, but delivered you a nightmare. They promised liberty, justice, and equality, but what did they give us? Chains, clubs, bullets, and broken promises. They told us to pledge allegiance to a flag that never pledged allegiance to us. They taught us to love a system that was built on our backs, soaked in our blood, and still dares to call us ungrateful when we stand up and say, no more. You want to know the real reason some of us refuse to accept America? It's not because we hate this land. It's because this land has never accepted us as human beings. We didn't reject America. America rejected us the moment it decided we were only 3/5 of a person. America rejected us when it hung our fathers from trees and called it justice. America rejected us when it redlined our neighborhoods, poisoned our schools, and flooded our communities with drugs, guns, and despair. America rejected us long before we rejected it. This isn't a matter of opinion. It's a matter of history, of fact, of lived experience passed down through generations like the scars our people still carry. From the moment the first African was ripped from the shores of his homeland, shackled in chains, and thrown into the belly of a slave ship, America made its position clear. This land, hailed as the beacon of liberty, was never meant for us. The Constitution, with its lofty words and elegant promises, was drafted not to include us, but to keep us in our place. It was written by men who owned our bodies and sold our children. They were not our founding fathers, they were our oppressors. This rejection was not subtle, not hidden behind polite laws or clever words. It was violent, it was systemic, it was unapologetic. The whip, the auction block, the plantation, those were America's welcome mat for us. When the country declared its independence in 1776, black people were still enslaved. When it signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, the ink may have freed our bodies, but the chains around our lives were only reforged in different ways. Jim Crow didn't appear out of nowhere. It was the next chapter in America's long story of rejection. It was a deliberate move to remind us that freedom in this country had boundaries, and black folks weren't meant to cross them. Even after the legal end of slavery, the rejection continued in full force. Through convict leasing, black codes, and lynch mobs, America made it clear that we would never be equal in its eyes. Our lives were cheap, our voices silenced, our humanity denied. When black men returned from fighting wars abroad, they came back not to celebration but to segregation. They fought for democracy overseas only to be treated as second-class citizens, or not citizens at all once their boots touched American soil. What kind of nation welcomes its veterans with news as threats and closed doors? A nation that never saw them as part of its fabric to begin with. Our rejection is written into the geography of this country. Look at the ghettos, the red-line neighborhoods, the housing projects built to contain rather than uplift. Look at the underfunded schools, the poisoned water, the food deserts. These are not accidents. They are policies. They are intentional. They are the hands of rejection wrapped tightly around our necks. A country that cared would invest. A country that saw us as its own would build bridges, not walls. But America built walls around our communities, then blamed us for not climbing over them. When we marched peacefully, we were beaten. When we cried out for justice, we were silenced. When we demanded equality, we were told to wait, and wait, and wait, always wait. Generation after generation has been told that progress takes time, that change is slow. But while we wait, our people die. While we wait, the prisons fill up with black bodies. While we wait, our mothers bury their sons. Waiting becomes a form of slow death when the system you're waiting on was never built for you in the first place. The media paints our frustration as rage, our anger as irrational, our defiance as criminal. But what is more rational than rejecting a country that has rejected you at every turn? What is more honest than recognizing that love for this country, if it ever existed in us, was battered and bruised beyond repair by the very institutions that claim to represent freedom? We are told to be grateful, to celebrate progress. But progress that inches forward while dragging chains is not freedom, it's illusion. And we are not fools. Every time we rise up, we're reminded that we're still outsiders. We're told we're un-American when we kneel, when we protest, when we speak truth to power. But what is more American than holding the nation accountable to the values it claims to uphold? If anything, those who reject us are the ones betraying the ideals of liberty and justice. We are not the problem. We are the proof that America's promises were never universal. The police weren't designed to protect us. They were born from slave patrols. That's not metaphor. That's history. And history has a way of repeating itself when it's never reckoned with. When our children are taught a version of the past that erases our pain, that whitewashes genocide and slavery, that uplifts the oppressor and erases the oppressed, that's not education, that's indoctrination. And indoctrination is another way rejection manifests. by stealing our narratives and replacing them with lies. Even the idea of integration was a compromise, a plea, a hope that maybe, just maybe, we could be led into a burning house if we were polite enough, patient enough, perfect enough. But perfection never earned us acceptance. It only delayed the inevitable betrayal, because every time we moved forward, the system shifted the goalposts. Every gain we made was followed by backlash. Reconstruction gave way to Jim Crow. The civil rights movement gave way to mass incarceration. Symbolic victories were followed by structural sabotage. This rejection is not just historical, it is present. It's in every traffic stop that turns deadly, in every courthouse that hands down harsher sentences to black defendants, in every hospital that ignores the pain of a black woman, in every corporate boardroom where diversity means a token seat with no power, in every school where black children are disciplined more harshly and expected to achieve less. Rejection is alive, breathing, well-fed, and institutionalized. This nation built its wealth on our labor, its culture on our creativity, its image on our suffering. Yet we are expected to be quiet about it, to be grateful, to smile in the face of rejection. But we see through it. We always have. And when we reject America, it's not because we fail to understand it. It's because we understand it too well. Justice cannot grow from a foundation of lies. That is not a slogan. It's a reality carved into the bones of this nation. The American system, the one we're told to believe in, to trust, to vote for, to serve, was built on contradictions. It proclaims liberty while practicing oppression. It preaches justice while delivering brutality. It swears by truth, yet its history is nothing but a layered graveyard of deception. And no matter how many times they repaint the walls or change the language, a rotten foundation cannot produce justice. You can't build a righteous future on a past you refuse to confront. This country was never honest about its beginnings. The textbooks talk about pilgrims and founding fathers, but they don't mention that colonization meant slaughter. They say settlement, but it was invasion. They say expansion, but it was extermination. Native blood soaked the soil before the first page of American history was even written. From the beginning, the story was wrapped in lies, wrapped in noble language that covered up genocide. And once the land was stolen, the bodies came next. They say this is a nation of immigrants, but they ignore the millions who were never allowed to immigrate, who were stolen, branded, whipped, and chained across oceans to build an empire that would never acknowledge their humanity. How can justice grow when the very soil it stands on is watered with denial? How can we speak of equality in a land where the scales of justice were forged with bias in their design? From the courtrooms to the classroom, from the Constitution to the corporations, lies are not just present, they are foundational. This country tells you to trust its institutions. But how can we trust institutions that were never meant for us, that were constructed specifically to control and contain us, that operate with precision when it comes to punishing us, but fall apart when asked to protect us? The law is not neutral. The law has never been neutral. It has always served the interests of those in power. The enslaver wrote the law. The colonizer enforced it. The capitalist profited from it. And yet we're told to believe in justice, as if justice were blind, as if it were real, as if it weren't just another tool used to maintain the order of lies. When the enslaved rebelled, they were criminals. When the oppressed rise, they're labeled thugs. But when the powerful exploit, invade, and kill, they are praised as patriots, businessmen, heroes. Justice is not just about the courtroom. It's about what a society values. And this society has never valued black life, brown life, indigenous life, not in truth, not in policy, not in practice. The justice system is not broken. It's functioning exactly as designed. A system that was born out of inequality cannot be expected to produce equality. It's like planting poison seeds and expecting to harvest fresh fruit. No matter how beautiful the speeches, no matter how diverse the faces on the television screens, if the core remains the same, then all we're getting is a more palatable form of oppression. We have been lied to in every arena. They say education is the great equalizer, but the schools in our neighborhoods are crumbling. They say the economy lifts all boats, but our communities don't even have docks. They say democracy means every voice counts, but every election season they find new ways to silence ours. They say freedom is our birthright, yet they lock us in cages for being poor, for being angry, for being black. These are not separate lies. They are connected. They are the threads of a larger design that wraps itself in the appearance of fairness while functioning with brutal efficiency to keep us in our place. What we are dealing with is not a few bad apples. It's a diseased orchard, and painting slogans on the streets or posting hashtags does not undo centuries of systemic deceit. When a nation spends more time on appearances than truth, when it puts image before honesty, then justice becomes just another performance. It becomes a show, an illusion sold to the masses to keep them docile. They tell us to be patient, to work within the system, to have faith in reforms, but reforms don't change the foundation. They just rearrange the furniture in a burning house. They celebrate progress when one of us is appointed to high office, But they stay silent when thousands of us rot in jails for crimes of poverty. They invite us to the table, but only if we agree to play by their rules, speak their language, accept their myths. But you can't negotiate justice when the terms are set by liars. You can't heal a wound you refuse to admit exists. And you cannot move forward while dragging the weight of unspoken truth behind you. We are taught to be ashamed of our rage, to bury our pain, to smile through injustice and call it resilience. But rage is not our enemy. It is our proof of consciousness. It is our refusal to believe the lies. When we call out injustice, when we refuse to stay silent, we are not the problem. We are the evidence that truth still lives, that somewhere beneath the lies, there is still a heartbeat demanding to be heard. They say justice is blind, but we see clearly. We see the contradictions. We see the hypocrisy. We see a system that claims to value law and order, yet was born in lawlessness and built through blood. We are not fooled by flags and ceremonies, by statues and speeches. We measure a nation not by its symbols, but by its actions. And the actions of this country have shown us that justice, real justice, cannot survive in a house built on lies. Self-determination is the answer, not assimilation. For too long we have been told that if we simply try harder, speak softer, dress better, and think more like them, we might finally be accepted. We've been handed blueprints for success that were never meant to include us. We've been taught that the way to liberation is through imitation, through becoming a mirror image of the very system that has tried to erase us. But we do not need their approval. We do not need to squeeze ourselves into spaces that were built to exclude us. Our power does not lie in their acceptance. It lies in our own control over our lives, our communities, and our future. Assimilation is surrender wrapped in compliments. They will tell you you're one of the good ones if you play by their rules. They'll promote you if you never question the system. They'll applaud your success as long as it doesn't challenge their authority. But that isn't freedom. That's a contract. That's conditional existence. They want our bodies in their offices, our faces in their commercials, our culture in their music, but not our truth, not our history, not our struggle. Assimilation says we should become more like them. Self-determination says we should become more like ourselves. We weren't meant to be carbon copies. We come from strength, from resistance, from a people who survived the impossible. Our story didn't begin on plantations or in projects. It began long before in villages and cities that thrive with dignity, with language, with culture. Colonizers didn't civilize us. They disrupted us. Enslavers didn't give us identity. They tried to steal it. And yet we are still here. That alone is a form of resistance. That alone proves the power of self-determination. Self-determination means we define ourselves. We name ourselves. We educate our children with truth, not watered-down stories. We feed our communities with our own hands, not with scraps thrown down by systems that keep us dependent. It means building institutions that reflect our values. It means organizing our neighborhoods to protect each other instead of waiting for a justice system that was never built to serve us. It means refusing to be satisfied with symbolic inclusion when what we need is structural control. They fear self-determination because it means we no longer need their permission. It means we reject the idea that progress looks like sitting at their table instead of building our own. It means we stop asking and start doing. The movements that made them most nervous weren't the ones asking for reform. They were the ones building schools, clinics, breakfast programs, and patrols to protect their own. The real threat was never violence, it was independence. It was the idea that we could live without them, that we could survive and thrive without bowing, without begging. Assimilation teaches us to internalize inferiority. It tells us we must prove we are worthy, that we must perform excellence to deserve basic humanity. But self-determination tells us we are already worthy because we exist, because we fight, because we refuse to be erased. It shifts our mindset from asking for space to claiming it, from reacting to oppression to creating alternatives. It demands that we invest in ourselves, that we trust our own vision, that we choose solidarity over approval. When you assimilate, you become a guest in someone else's house. When you practice self-determination, you build your own. And yes, it may not have the same resources at first, but it will have truth, it will have purpose. And most importantly, it will belong to us, because ownership matters, because autonomy matters, because no matter how many times they let us in the door, it will never be our house if we didn't lay the foundation. The lie of assimilation is that it leads to equality. But how can you be equal in a system built on your exclusion? How can you climb a ladder that was never meant to hold your weight? We do not need to be assimilated into something broken. We need to create something new. That doesn't mean isolation. It means sovereignty. It means alliances based on mutual respect, not dependency. It means cooperation without submission. We can work with others without losing ourselves. We can engage the world on our terms. The most dangerous lie we've been told is that we have no power unless it's given to us. But power is not something you wait to receive. It's something you seize, something you build, something you claim. It comes from organizing, from educating, from uniting. It comes from knowing your worth and refusing to trade your identity for a seat at a rigged table. Self-determination is not about separation from humanity. It is about separation from control, from manipulation, from the illusion that inclusion means liberation. We do not need to be diluted to be accepted. We do not need to code, switch into invisibility. Our languages, our rhythms, our skin, our minds, these are not obstacles. They are not problems to fix. They are power. They are culture. They are legacy. And they will never be truly honored through assimilation, only through ownership. The ones who came before us didn't survive centuries of slavery, segregation, and suppression so that we could be accepted into a system built to destroy them. They survived so we could become something greater, so we could reclaim what was stolen, so we could define our own destiny. Self-determination is not a dream. It is a necessity. It is not radical. It is rational. It is the only path that allows us to walk forward without losing ourselves along the way. It is the answer to a history of rejection and distortion. It is the answer to centuries of being told who we are by those who benefit from our confusion. It is the rejection of silence. It is the refusal to be shaped by those who do not love us. Rejection of illusion is the beginning of real power. For too long, many have lived trapped inside a dream crafted by others, an illusion sold as truth. Freedom and equality, it's an illusion dressed up in patriotic songs, waving flags, and national holidays, but underneath lies a reality too often ignored or denied. This illusion tells us that if we just believe hard enough, work hard enough, and trust the system, everything will be fair and just. But that illusion is designed to keep us dreaming, to keep us passive, to keep us from seeing the true nature of the world we live in. Only when we reject that illusion, when we strip away the comforting lies, do we begin to find real power. Power doesn't come from acceptance by those who oppress you. It comes from clarity, the clear-eyed recognition of who holds the power, how they wield it, and why they refuse to share it. The moment you see the illusion for what it is, you stop playing the game on their terms. You stop hoping for their approval and start building your own foundation. That's when power shifts from the hands of those who manipulate us to the hands of those who demand justice and dignity. The illusion is seductive because it promises inclusion. But inclusion without power is a cage. It promises equality, but equality without equity is a lie. It promises freedom, but freedom without justice is a sham. We are told to be patient, to trust the process, to believe that if we wait, things will get better. But waiting is a trap. Waiting is surrender disguised as hope. The moment we reject that false hope is the moment we reclaim our own destiny. Rejecting illusion means rejecting the stories that erase our history and minimize our pain. It means refusing to accept sanitized versions of the past that make us feel less angry, less justified, less worthy of change. It means understanding that the systems that govern us were designed with intent, not mistakes or accidents. It means acknowledging that progress is often a mirage, a tactic used to pacify while real change is delayed or denied. Real power begins with truth. Truth about the past, truth about the present, truth about what is possible. When the veil is lifted, we see the depth of the challenge, but also the magnitude of our potential. We see that the people who built these systems did so not because they were benevolent, but because they sought control. And control is maintained not by generosity, but by deception. When you reject the deception, you strip away their power over you. This rejection does not mean turning away from society or retreating into isolation. It means confronting society on our own terms. It means building communities, institutions, and movements grounded in honesty and self-respect. It means demanding accountability and refusing to accept token gestures or hollow reforms. It means understanding that real change requires more than laws and policies. It requires a shift in power relations. Illusions are maintained by distractions and false promises. They are upheld by those who benefit from the status quo and who use division, misinformation, and fear to keep people in line. But once you see the illusion, you can no longer be fooled by empty words or performative acts. You see the difference between symbolic victories and substantive change. You learn to value integrity over image, justice over appearance. Rejecting illusion is also an act of love for ourselves, for our communities, and for future generations. It is the refusal to let false narratives dictate how we value ourselves or our worthiness. It is the commitment to build a reality where our children can grow without the burden of lies and half-truths. It is the courage to demand a world where power is shared, not hoarded. When we reject illusion, we open space for imagination and creativity. We can envision new ways of being and organizing that are not confined by the old rules. We can create solutions that center our needs, our values, and our histories. We can embrace a future where our identity is not a liability, but a source of strength and pride. The rejection of illusion is not easy. It means facing uncomfortable truths and dismantling comforting myths. It means challenging deeply ingrained beliefs and confronting those who profit from maintaining the status quo. It requires courage to speak truth in the face of denial and resistance. But it is only through this process that real power is born, power that cannot be taken away because it is rooted in self-knowledge and collective determination. When the illusion falls away, what remains is raw, undeniable reality, and within that reality lies the seeds of transformation, because power is not given, it is claimed, it is created through struggle, solidarity, and vision. It grows from the refusal to accept anything less than justice. It is the force that moves mountains, breaks chains, and rebuilds nations. This is why rejecting illusion is the first step on the path to liberation. It is the moment when the oppressed stop seeing themselves as victims of fate and start seeing themselves as architects of their own future. It is the moment when dreams turn from fantasies imposed by others to visions rooted in our own truths. It is the moment when silence breaks and voices rise in unison. To reject illusion is to wake up. It is to open your eyes to the full scope of history and the possibilities ahead. It is to choose power over passivity, action over acceptance, truth over comfort. It is not just a political act, it is a spiritual one, because real power flows from authenticity, from standing in your truth no matter the cost. When we reject illusion, we reclaim our stories, our identities, and our futures. We create a foundation that no lie can shake and no oppressor can destroy. And from that foundation, the work of justice can truly begin.